Hjertelig velkommen til en ny utgave av Tennispodden, som I dag har storfint besøk. Og denne utgaven kommer dere også til å få testet litt språkkunnskaper, for vi kommer til å snakke engelsk. For vi har nemlig storfint besøk, som jeg sa. Welcome to Tennispodden, Emma Doyle.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back in Norway.
As people can hear on your accent, you're traveling from far away. Definitely Australia, right?
Yes, but I like to say I have a bit of a global triangle between Melbourne, Australia, Denver, Colorado, and perhaps even Norway.
You're here to learn us about coaching, and you've written a book about this. What makes a great coach? A really great question, and there's a story behind it, I understand.
Absolutely. Well, it was back in 2014 when Roger Federer accidentally put his arm around me as he's walking from the tennis courts to his helicopter, and I knew I had 30 seconds with arguably the greatest player in the world. So I said, hey, Rog, as we do, we shorten everything down under. What makes a great coach in 3 words or less? And his answer really surprised me. And within that, I started my podcast, I wrote the book, and so I'm wondering if you might want to know what he said.
Yes,
you do. Okay, you do. Okay, great. Okay, so he said, someone who listens. And I wasn't expecting that answer in that moment in my coaching, and it really catapulted so many things for me to take a much deeper dive into personalities, emotional intelligence, and the message beyond the spoken word. My favorite Gandhi quote is, there go my people, I must follow them, for I am their leader. And that quote to me really is the true essence of being a coach. What Roger said there, the more we can tune in and listen, especially with these new generation of children coming up, how do we listen to them in order to lead them? And I think I'd love to share a bit more about that today. But my book, thank you for asking, is based on over 500 interviews, and my podcast, or even has been on my podcast, the coaching podcast. And so, of course, I asked that question on it, and I collated the data into the top 10 practices. So it's things like listening, passion. We speak about that a lot. It's even why I wore this jumper today. I've got a jumper that says love and tennis. You know, I really still do love tennis, even though I work a lot in the corporate space now as well. But the top 10 practices, things like purpose, resiliency, communication, decision-making, such an important one around how we ask questions in our workplace. So thanks for asking about it. It was a labor of love. It was right before AI, so I did actually write the book. But appreciate you both.
But looking at this, the time is also changing. And what do you find the last 10 years? What's the big change? And maybe you talk about that later on, but can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the biggest change is in how we show up. Okay, and it's about, and I'll go actually straight away into my opening story, if that's okay, because that'll connect the dots of what I was going to, or what I'd like to share with the Norwegian tennis people, and especially the coaches. And that is the 2018 Junior Fed Cup team. And it would be fair to say not many coaches wanted to take this team away. So they're like, oh, well, Emma, she knows a little bit about people, and okay, we'll give her a call. So I took on what I'd been told was quite a difficult team. And really, were they difficult, or did they just have extremely different styles, behavioral styles, I like to say, personalities, etc. And if I had taken that team away in chapter 1 of my life, I definitely would have crashed and burned. In chapter 2, I had the wisdom of saying how to approach this. So the first thing I want to just touch upon is culture. So we had values all over the table, and they voted, and myself, on what we wanted to bring to Malaysia, the qualifying round. And we came up with our tagline was the improving raging elephants, which stood for improvement, respect, and enjoyment. And so even see how I hesitated, because it was 2018. I was like, hang on a minute. what were the values from back then. And they drove all the guidelines, for example, the rules about how we felt about our mobile phones. Were we going to have them on the dinner table or not? How were we going to learn about culture? Within Malaysia, they had to ask the Malaysian Uber drivers, called Grab drivers, one question about culture each day. We did visualization on the top floor overlooking the whole city each morning. So we just did things a little bit differently. So we were all doing those things together. And I had 3 completely different ways of communicating with each player when it came to the match court, the preparation court. One was from Queensland, and she was so relaxed. She's almost like lying down. So I'm almost lying down. I had my notebook out on day 1. She's like, "Oh, coach, put your notebook away. I've got this." I was like, "Oh, yeah, you've got this," you know. And then the second one was half Russian, half Australian. So it was divide. It was up, down, up, down. It was, come on. You know, she's had that intensity. So I matched and mirrored and that rapport, that intensity. And then the other girl, but sometimes win 6, love 6, and then we weren't sure what was going to happen. So I had to be a flat line on the change of ends. So I do joke, and I invite coaches out there. Sometimes you feel like, hang on, who am I? Multi-personality disorder. What's going on? But at the end of the week, they're the subtle things that I think is modern coaching. And really, if we keep doing what we've always done, we get what we've always got, the definition of insanity, right? So the fact that you're spending the time listening to this video, this podcast, it means that you're interested in developing yourself as a coach. And so I'd love to share a little bit about an instrumental technique that worked for me when I was learning everything about, you know, being a coach. And one more thing was in that chapter 1, I'd be like, why can I bring out the best in these 4 players? But I'm struggling to bring out the best in these 4 players. And as for the parents, I didn't have enough tools in my toolkit to be able to communicate with them. And so really, it wasn't until I got off court, hung up my rackets for that period of time in my life, that's what I wanted, some content around that I want to share with everybody, because it's served me so well in order to do what I'm doing today. Yeah. So that's
good.
Opening stories there.
Story, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
So, all right. Well, I'd love to dive into the why, the what, the how, and the now of this workshop presentation. The first why actually comes about from today. I went to a park in Norway, a very famous park with a bunch of different sculptures. So I'm sure Espen's going to manage to put this image, but essentially, Oyvind, you can see it here on the screen. There's a number of images in this park. And I was going to show this image tonight and just ask the coaches, what do you see? And 20 people probably in the room are going to see 20 different things, or let's say 15 different things. So again, why is this important? Because everyone has a different map of the world, is one thing I always like to say. And the map is not the territory, especially if you're dealing with performance teenage players. The map is not the territory. The spoken word is quite often not the truth. The classic one, of course, they come onto the court and you say, how are you? Fine. And we all know, right?
Yep.
That's not actually the case. So as a coach, the tone, the body language, how do we just take a moment to read those subtle cues, to know how you're going to bring out the best in someone in that moment? And that, to me, that whole piece around why is any of this important, like why care? It's because if I coach the way I learned best, which was kinesthetics through feel, then I'm going to bring out the best in a certain number of people, if that's the only way I coach. And I may have had success in the past, but again, the big why for this whole content is just for people to take a self-reflection and just ask yourself, where are your blind spots? You know, how are you improving your education? What are you doing to maximize your potential? Right? And whatever that might mean, all right, to experience pressure. I think that's important, that we continue as coaches to always expand our toolkit of knowledge. And my favorite formula is confidence equals time plus experience. You can't short circuit time, but you can short circuit the experience. If you're investing time listening to this right here, right now, you're short circuiting the experience of all of our years put together, right? So that's really important and you might just pick up one thing. And please, the only way I know how to be successful in my entire life is by taking action. So take action on one tool or one idea that this has ignited and see what works for your players rather than see what works for you. It's not about you at the end of the day. I mean, coaching, it's the greatest job in the world. It's the most selfless job in the world. And of course, what's my number one goal? To make myself redundant. I'm building you up into a person, into a player where I'm making myself redundant because you can survive in the world. So that really wraps up the first section of the why. And I'd love to just check in, Oyvind, with you first and just ask your thoughts and reflections on this opening important piece of why this is leader as coach is so important.
No, and we see this all over, and you said it, several times. You talked about the tools, the tools, the different tools that you can pick up when you meet people that are different, this is what we see a lot of times. We see that the coach said, this is the way I do it. But, it's not one way, you have to adapt to the person in front of you. And I think that is to go out there and see if you can add that to what you do now. You don't have to forget what you already have. Keep that. But add to what you have been doing. Add one thing to this every year, every half year, every quarter. Just add something to what you already have done, and you will see that this is like being a toolsman. You're there with your hammer and a toolbox, and you need to use different tools for different situations.
Or a tool woman.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And if you're sitting there thinking, can Oyvind, after all your years of experience, can he learn something new? Well, I'm going to go straight into a tool. This is called a fortune cookie. Okay. So imagine if you're listening to this, it's a tennis ball and all I've done is cut it open. Okay. So it does have motivational words on it. So it does say believe. But when a player's lost a match, just come over and just offer them a fortune cookie. So I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but I'm going to offer you a fortune cookie. Now, these quotes, because they're specific to this webinar, are all about coaching. So I'd love for you to pull one out and read it out if you feel comfortable, of course. And can an old dog learn new tricks? Not that you're old. That's
no.
I didn't mean.
No.
All right, what did you get?
The goal of coaching is the goal of good management to make the most of an organization's value resources. That's from Harvard Business Review.
What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yes. I had to think about it a little bit to see if this fits into what I do, but it's good.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. How many do you bring for?
Well, this one was for tonight's. This is all coaching quotes from people I admire, and again, but with players, they're all from famous athletes. Yeah. So you've just lost a match. I either win or I learn. So this is the first thing they're doing is they're getting a quote from a champion before you're going straight into saying what happened in the match today. I know you do a lot of parent education, but again, imagine a parent giving a child a fortune cookie after the match instead of going straight into the match debrief.
Yeah.
So something so simple and homemade, and it costs you nothing.
So most parents should probably stay away from the match debrief, in my opinion. But that's another story. But can I ask you a question?
Yes,
because
please.
While he's thinking, because you said something really interesting in the start. Actually, you said not many people wanted to take this team because it was a difficult team. Why does so many coaches want the easy job? Why do they want players that do not offer any resistance? Because friction is always good for development, right? So friction will probably create better player, better team, and over time, better results.
Yes. I'm, as you can probably tell, into my formulas. So I have remember, my confidence equals time plus experience. Conflict equals expectation divided by reality. So the expectation of, let's say, the coach can, especially if they don't communicate it, be different to the parent. And that they then become, for example, high maintenance parents, or as I like to say, no, they're actually called Happy Monday parents, because if you understand that whatever their expectation is, and I used to say, once I realized that many parents are auditory digital learners, for example, they just need to know exactly what the makeup policy is, exactly what the payment process is. They need to know exactly what the situation is. If this happens, if I spend the time with them to give them that information, they'll be clients for life. And that to me is why we avoid it, because the expectations are not clear up front with your policy, with your coaching philosophy, with your non-negotiables. So remember, you can adapt your communication, but you still have to have a coaching philosophy that's built over time, because there are many, many methods, but there are very few principles. So you let the parent know up front what your principles are, what you stand for, who you are, and you will adapt your communication based on perhaps even something you learn here today, is really, really important. And I think that's why at the end of the day they avoid it, because that piece is missing. That's really missing. Yeah.
But I think that if I go back to what I said earlier about the resources that every coach have already, with background from playing and background from coaching for a long time, but to manage, and the goal is to I say it again, the goal of coaching is the goal of a good management.
Yeah.
And that can also, here it's about organization, but it can also be yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think we are, sorry to jump in, but just, I mean, this is so important. In today's society, we are a brand of one.
Yeah.
Okay. So even if you're part of a large organization, as a coach, the way we carry ourselves, how we interact, what we look like when we come to tournaments, you are a brand, you are your brand. And that is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that management is something that you have to think about.
Absolutely.
Because,
Yeah.
All right, good.
All right. Well,
Can I ask one more? Because there's also the listening part that you said that a good coach or a great coach is the coach that listens. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Can we turn this around and say the same thing, that a great student, if you want to use that word, is also someone who actually listens? Because for a tennis player today who wants to be good, there is so much noise, right? You have you have the coach that says one thing. Then you have the parents that might say something completely different. Then you have all the friends on social media that take pictures of you and shows you like with weird faces, and especially for girls this might be difficult, right? And then all this noise around. So how can we make sure that the student or the player is actually listening and being a good player, if you understand what I mean?
It's a really interesting question.
I think so.
Yeah, to flip it in that way, I guess my take on it is, to be a great coach and to be a great student, you have to be curious. And curiosity comes from listening. If I listen, say, something online even, I see a video of a forehand, and then I come to my coach and say, hey, you know what? I saw this video about this forehand. I'd love for you to share more about that. So educating your students to actually question the status quo, or perhaps something, again, as you said, there's so much noise out there. For them to question, I think, is perhaps even more important than just listening to the coach. Oh, my coach is or the almighty. To be able to have, I think modern coaching is a dialogue. It's a partnership. It's a collaborative process. It's no longer large and in charge. Or I used to call it war stories. I used to get my girls all warmed up, and then this coach, who's an amazing coach, then he'd talk for 20 minutes. Listen to me, listen to my knowledge, girls, and he'd lose them. So there's a time for listening. And I think one of the most important things that I really want to get across today is the power and the art of asking questions. not just as a coach, but how do you empower that in your students? All right, this lesson, I want you to ask me 3 questions. Rather than just believe me, right, when you're inside the singles line and the baseline, take it up the line. Instead of believing, just believe me verbatim, what can you experience and explore? And I know we share a passion for helping people perform with pressure, not under pressure, right? With pressure. How can pressure be a part of my training? And that's one thing I see that's really, really missing. And how can we ask, hey, if you ask 3 questions this lesson, hey, that's a bonus, rather than I feel like you're attacking me, or why don't you believe me? And you should just listen to me because I'm the coach. So that's why your question was interesting. And I want to make my message really clear here today. Because I've been coaching since I was 14 and, so over 30 years. And this is what I in my core, in my passion, I know to be true. There's so much power in curiosity. Yeah. All right, let's jump into the what. What are the practical strategies that I wanted to share here today? And they're called behavioral styles. So I'm sure maybe many of you listening may have experienced, done some sort of personality test or profile. There's lots and lots out there. And when I say, okay, what do you remember? Oh, I took that Myers-Briggs test and I'm a MQ something, or I'm a disc, or, I'm the color blue. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? They're like, not sure. So what I want to provide today is an opportunity to have 4 really easy profiles. And of course, I have based them all on tennis. So the first one is called the crowd pleaser personality, or behavioral style, beg your pardon, rather than personality. And please, I share these not to put people in a box. This is all about how a coach can adapt his or her communication based on what you think is in front of you. Okay, so if you think you've got someone, my pro player examples include like a Serena Williams or remember a Marcos Bagdatis, the real flamboyant, non-disciplined decision-making. They often have an array of shot selections in their toolkit. They're naturally very gifted with exceptional talent, and they use the energy of their crowd to really motivate and inspire. So that's sort of some of the characteristics. So when it comes to communicating with the crowd pleaser, as you can imagine, it is important that you let them be creative. Again, we don't want to tell them, got to hit 2 cross court, 1 down the line, when they can see different choices. So that's important. The other thing with the crowd pleaser that's important is they're going to go on diversions, digressions in the lesson. Be patient with that as a coach. They definitely will need structure. Again, perhaps they can hit an array of shots. So it's important perhaps you educate them on scoreline pressure, etc. So give them some structure, but obviously make sure it's aligned with their goals, and get excited with them when they're telling you about a tournament or something that's come up. It's important that you also match and mirror that energy and that excitement. So the next profile that we have is called the aggressive baseliner. So here the pro player examples are people like Maria Sharapova and Novak Djokovic. Certainly even Maria Sharapova, when I saw her at Bollettieri's at 12, 13 years of age, it's exactly the same as what she was as an adult. So as you can imagine, they play the ball on their own terms. They like to dictate the play. The points are controlled by 1 or 2 tactics. And they're quite one-eyed and ruthlessly competitive. I'm sure you can all think of somebody that's that more introvert, but knows exactly what they want. So the behavioral characteristics, fast and decisive with their pace, quite formal and efficient, structured in their environment that they live and operate. They prefer control, success, goals, leadership, get to the point, let them be in charge. They often know their strengths and can be quite entrepreneurial. Even as a teenager, you might start to see these traits, and the decisions are very decisive. So when communicating with them, it's important that I used to warm up my players, and then I had this one particular coach just tell war stories for 20 minutes, and he would lose. Especially, I could tell those 1 or 2 that were just like, come on, let's get on the court and get hitting balls. So get to the point, communicate quickly and clearly, show how your ideas are compatible with their goals, and let them be in charge. give them bottom line answers, and give them a choice. So it is important that modern day coaching does have that collaborative partnership with the coach and the player. I'm not saying you let the player be in charge all the time. It's just the subtleties in how you help with allowing them to make bottom line decisions about their tennis. So that's the aggressive baseliner. The third profile, and the good news is we only have 4 profiles. So you're not having to worry about who is in front of me. All right. So here we're talking about the all court player. My pro player examples include, I know it's an older one, but that Martina Hingis, again, when I was at Saddlebrook, could see she's such a deep thinker. And Rafael Nadal, another one we see there, he's very, shows a lot of the traits of this characteristic. So they have quite often a very well-structured game plan. They can often play more than one tactic to suit the different game styles that they come up against. Excellent with court sense and game awareness. And the characteristics are the appearance is quite formal. The workplace is very structured, organized, functional, and they're slow and systematic in their pace. It does not mean they're slow. It just simply means they need plenty of time to consider information because their decisions are quite deliberate, and they prefer precise, correct, and accurate information. For example, if you're giving statistics on what's the average length of rally at the French Open, rather than it's an average of 6 balls, well, is that men's or women's? Is it 6.1? Is it 5.7? So just know your statistics. So as it relates to communicating with them, do exactly that, and present your ideas in a logical fashion with that supporting evidence. Provide plenty of time for them to plan for your sessions. So give an agenda. Let them know what you're working on. This also works great with parents and training blocks. Avoid rushing this style. You want to give them an opportunity, if you're coaching in a group environment, to call upon them to hear what they have to say. Or perhaps you do that one-on-one if it's too much in front of a group, because remember, they're more self-contained and more indirect with their communication style. And they love action steps to achieve their goal. A, B, C, D will help them get to where they want to go. If you miss out steps B and C, you're definitely going to lose this style. And encourage them to share their ideas, because, as I said, they can be quite quiet and reserved. And one last quick tip, ask them how they think, not how they feel. How do you feel about that match? Hey, talk me through your thought process in the first set. Break it down into manageable size chunks. All right, so moving on to our final profile here is the consistent player. So pro player examples include, we've got someone like Caroline Wozniacki is a good example. Again, I knew her as a kid, very well liked. Andre Agassi, for another one you could throw in the mix there. Players that can adapt his or her game style to suit the situation, and they'll choose the best overall strategy to play well. So the characteristics include they're quite casual and conforming. So they're personal, relaxed, easygoing in their nature, and they prefer maintaining relationships, very, very loyal, and often extremely well liked on the tour or in the club environments that you're in, and well respected within the community, and their decisions are quite considered. So when you're coaching somebody like this, it's important that you spend the time to establish rapport with them. Perhaps you even know that the dog had the operation on last weekend. You check in. So you're building the relationship. Really, off court is as important as on court, because you want to develop that trust, which takes a little bit longer with the consistent player personality style, behavioral style. Share personal experience and common interests. So take the time to find out what you have in common. Show that you care about their opinion and that you appreciate the hard work that they do, because they won't tell you they've done it. So you need to ask those questions. Avoid too much detail, but do provide plenty of assurance and plenty of support material. So as I just round this off, please note, as coaches, there'll be one that I've just mentioned that you're thinking, self-awareness. Yeah, that's more like me. So there'll be one that's very comfortable, or I beg your pardon, there'll be one that's quite natural, and then there'll be a secondary one there that's quite comfortable, and then there'll be a third one that's a little uncomfortable, and then the fourth one, and this is critical, there'll be one there that you'll avoid, whether it be a parent, whether it be an adult player. It'll just happen even subconsciously. So again, everything needs to come to your conscious awareness for you to be able to adapt your communication. And I had to work really hard at this. Once I learnt and understood behavioral styles, it was about, okay, which one do I avoid, right? Now that I'm aware of it, how can I work on this? How can I coach more people with this style so I can work on my questioning skills and my ability to bring out the best in them? So I'll check in there. I know that was a lot of information. Are you still with me?
Yeah.
Yes? Yeah. Okay.
This is very interesting, actually, because what if you misidentify? And this goes both ways, right? What if the coach identifies you as something you are not? Or even if you misidentify yourself, what if you think you are this type of player or really want to be this type of player?
Yeah.
But in order to accept the information that you're getting in the best possible way, you should accept that you're actually this.
Yeah. Great question, comment, and I do have, if you're not sure, I have 18 questions, really simple questions that actually says, well, you said you were this, but actually you're more like this. And on that note, I just want to also share, so since I've been doing these 4 simple profiles, does your actual game style, so the way I like to play tennis, does that match my personality? And here's the real key. 70% of the time it does. So 70% of the time is if I've got that extroverted personality and I'm flamboyant and I'm out there and I love to give my opinion, then that will be 70% of the time how I play on the tennis court. Now 30% of the time it won't, by the way, and that's okay. That's just the way that the statistics have thrown things back at me. So if you've misdiagnosed, either take the quiz, step 1, step 2, don't worry. Just, actually, now I've done a bit more research on it, or with this player, perhaps you first meet a player and you have, of course, takes 7 seconds to form a first impression. Don't judge the book by its cover automatically, and take the time to go, actually, I first diagnosed here, and of course, we're a combination of all 4. So just say to yourself, which one is your gut feeling? See how I said gut feeling, because that's how I go to my decisions. If I was a thinker, I would go to my head, tap up into what do I think this player is. So tap into your natural resource and go with that.
And the more you do this, the better you will be. Okay, I think the more you reflect on this, who's in front of you.
Yeah, and the beauty is we have this all filmed on YouTube. Go back, watch the YouTube clip, make sure you understand the characteristics and what you're seeing. And perhaps you're seeing a combination of 2, so explore your communication in that way.
Because the reason I'm asking you is that I'm sure there's a lot of, and this might be a little bit off topic, but I'm still going to ask you, because there might be a lot of players out there, they like to play like the big game and like to be this type of player, right? But then they have a really low acceptance for making mistakes or errors. And these 2 things doesn't go together, right? Because you're going to have a personality crash that's really big in there somewhere. Absolutely. And it's going to ruin your game in a way.
Yes, absolutely. So you're right. And the biggest take-home message right here, right now is how can the coach adapt their communication to speak to the true personality of the person, regardless of how they play the game. So that's the biggest take-home message.
And I think it's also like just need to know a little bit about the family, or the family. How do they like to take risk in life, or do they want to play more safe? Because that's also some of the you see a lot of players that play that, they don't want to make mistakes, and you say, well, you have to take and they don't like it because every time they make a mistake, they're getting really worried. Okay, so this is something that you have to look at and find out and work and see who they are, because you cannot communicate, you cannot teach, you cannot do the same.
And if in doubt, what's the final take-home message? Ask the player. How do you like to be communicated with? Like, you cannot go wrong with that question.
No.
I like to see things which matches more of the consistent player. I like to hear it, the facts and the data. It's the thinker. I like you just to, just to show me, just play games and create this environment for me to work it out on my own. And then, of course, the aggressive baseliner, just boom. I want to tell you what I'm working on today.
But it is really interesting because, and this might also be a little bit off topic, but it would help you as a player to know the other types of profiles in a way, because you're there on court, right? You're really stressed. And then on the other side of the net, there's someone he's just going for it. Like, he doesn't give a shit if he's making mistakes, and you're standing there terrified of making an error, and you just want to, and then game styles crash. And then this might be really, really, really annoying for you, if you understand what I mean.
From a coach perspective?
Both actually, because if you're as a player struggling to accept that other people are different than you in a way, you sort of think that I'm like this, so everybody should have the same problems as me, or they should be the same type as me, or so to actually be able to identify the other types of personalities that you describe here would actually be very helpful for you as a player, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get people confused, because game styles, that's a whole nother topic. And I could do a whole nother webinar on
So you
that
could.
in relation to different game styles. Just quickly, right now I'm working with a very talented lefty on her mindset, and I asked her what her game style is, how she likes to play tennis. She said, I have no idea. So we unpacked her strengths and how she wins points, and she's le shield maiden. So she's lefty, le, and then the shield, backhands the shield, and then she's got the sweeping lefty serve and the big angle forehand to win her points, being her sword, right? Now, that's her game style that we've created, right? We know there's 5 game styles, in tennis, but I believe in creating unique game styles. And her personality, she is 100% the consistent player.
Okay.
Right? So pretty different to her way she plays tennis. So the main message I want to get across here, to not confuse game style with behavioral style. As a coach, you need to be obsessed with the behavioral style to then bring out the game style that they want to play. Did that?
Yeah.
Was that super clear?
Yep.
Okay. Really important.
Great.
Yeah.
That was
Really Shall I give
good, actually.
Espen fortune?
Yeah. Give it.
So,
He was really into his questions.
So,
and anyone?
Okay, anyone? Oh, this.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's.
And then you got to say what you get. Yep. What'd you get?
It says, to be a great leader, you have to be a great communicator. Coaching is leadership communication in action. Marshall Goldsmith. And this is very, very true.
Yeah.
All of it, actually. Well said. So, very good note.
Yeah. You're welcome. All right. Shall I move down to the how, or you want to?
No, that's fine. I think, but because this is also sometimes, we see that we discussed a lot about, the communication part, and you can train this communication part right here.
100%.
Yeah, and it's trainable. But you have to. It's a good way to do it is like put up your camera when you're talking to people and see what you think.
How did you know?
No.
How did you know?
No.
Okay, so welcome to the how, section 3 of the workshop. So there were 2 things that I'm going to invite you to do. Self-awareness. Everything starts with self-awareness. So number 1 is to film yourself coaching, even if it's just a voice recorder, even if you just for 10 minutes. And play it back, or even give it to somebody who admire you, respect. It's so often my mentoring of coaches over the years, they're sending me a video of the player, and I end up writing back a page of notes on what they said. I said, I'll get to the player in a minute, just so you know, here's a transcript. And now with AI, you can probably do this much quicker than what I used to do it. But I would transcribe everything that they said and have them reflect on, so how many questions did you ask? How many times did you ask it in a way that is relevant to the actual player's behavioral style? And 3, great shot. I love the way you're moving. Oh, you got this. Well done. Yeah, that's the way. How much of that feedback was actually specific, right? So great energy, love that you're doing all those wonderful things. And apart from saying, love the way you moved well, the 5 other statements tell you nothing or are saying nothing. So the other message in the how that I want to get across, and because you've invited me here today, and I really appreciate this opportunity, less is more. Questions are the answer. And as a coach, curiosity is one of your greatest superpowers. So important, that the power of the pause. And when a kid says, you say, okay, next time, what other choices did you have? The ball went in the net and here's where you were on the court. So next time, what would you do differently? And if they say, I don't know, you say, all right, well, let me either refeed the ball, same spot. I'll give you 3 more chances to work it out. Or what if you were to go curious? Or what if there's no wrong answer, right? So sometimes as we default too quickly as coaches straight into giving the answer. And I think sometimes even, the parents are watching and we're on show and we want to show them that we know what we're talking about rather than just flipping it back into a question. But the reason why this is so important to me and I'm so passionate about it is because I still feel that everybody plays better in practice than in a match. And that's on us as coaches. And the reason this happens is because we're not embedding those pressure moments and those decision-making moments in the practice court and in that environment. So that's number 1 in the how. And number 2, I've got a number of sentences here for you to what we call reframe into questions. So for example, if now the consistent player says, I don't understand what you're saying. How can you flip that into a question based on their style? Okay, so match and mirror with the tone. Remember, they're the ones that you want to make sure you've got that really good trust. And then you could simply just say, hey, how can I adapt what I'm saying to make it easier for you to understand? Something as simple as that. It's a flipped question. With the director, I don't like to hit slice. I don't like to hit slice. Well, what are you going to do there? Okay, they're the director. They love bottom line answers. Okay, is the slice is it useful within their game style, or have they got absolutely no feel? Okay, right? But how could you flip it into saying, okay, I hear you, and do you know the benefits of the slice? See how I flip that into a question where I'm making it intriguing to them. The socializer. Oh, my coach is always telling me to recover. My mum says recover. And my coach says recover, like 10 times a lesson. And then in the match, the parent says, I don't understand why you're not recovering. Your coach has told you 50 million times. So I love that one for the socializer, right? How could you sell something different in there? One of my favorites is even just to say, well, where do you live? Yeah, I live in Oslo. Okay. Well, do you go home at night for dinner? Okay, great. Well, remember, what have you got to remember? After you hit this ball, by the time it bounces down the other end, you tell me where you think, I've got to get back to Oslo, right? There's something creative there. Notice how I'm not going with the boring old tennis language. Okay. With the socializer, you got to think outside the square. And then last example, something along the lines of, for the thinker, you coach the way that you used to play tennis, and I'm not connecting the why with why you're asking me to do this drill. I just don't get it, right? So how is you as a coach could listen, appreciate that. Hey, thanks for sharing that, right? What if you would just say, hey, thanks for sharing that. You're 100% right. We do have different game styles. And you know what? What would help you to see this activity in a different light? Okay. Do you need the data? Do you need the facts? Do you need the figures? How can I support this? Or how can we adapt the rules in our training practice so that it makes sense to you? See how I just flipped 4 questions from a player's statement. And this is the art of adapting our communication in real time. So that's the how piece. I'll just check in there with either of you.
To ask questions instead of just giving answers might be looked as a bit of a weakness from certain coaches, because that's just the way it is. But to me, what you're saying makes total and perfect sense. So how do we convince coaches that this is actually the way to go instead of just telling them that just do this or do that or whatever?
Well, first of all, I always say you don't have to agree with anything I say. You just have to be curious. Remember, that's the superpower of a modern coach, right? So first of all, you don't have to agree with me. Number one. Number two, if you are curious, just give it a go yourself and see the benefits, because I can guarantee the students won't question it. The students at the start, they'll go, what happened to my coach? Because you normally just have verbal diarrhea, right? And then the student, once they, especially if you get a new student that doesn't know the way you used to coach, they'll be right into it. They'll be the ones who you'll see the benefits show up for yourself. So just see what works for the child. Most of the time, it's the parents looking and going, well, I'm paying you for the answers. Why are you just not giving it to my child? And that's where I have what's called a black folder of evidence. And that is studies, research, anecdotal things, as well as factual research on the benefits of what's called indirect coaching. Okay. And this is something, I've been around as... well, maybe you're just a little older than me, but I've been around a long time where, the games-based approach was really misunderstood. I never forget when it came out in 2001 in Australia, and the coaches went from, attached to the basket was on their hip and just all feeding, to now we don't feed at all, and we give the kids 4 modified balls, modified court, and we walk around the outside and we let them play and we let them learn on their own. So that's 100% not what I'm saying either. So I'm totally in the middle, and I believe in creating environments, which is the games-based approach. It's all it is. It's an environment where you can let the scoring do the talking for you, combined with questions. For example, I know if I'm losing you, let me strip it right back, and let's say that you want to hit the ball deeper. Right? So simple activity. Now you can say to your blue black in the face, get your elbow up higher, make sure you feel the stretch down your lats here, use the ground, anchor yourself, and really use your legs, fire the ball deep. Right. What if you didn't say any of that and you just had 3 targets, even beyond the baseline? Remember, thinking outside the square here. 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, right? For the depth. Okay. So you've created an environment. That's a games-based approach, where the scoring is motivating you to want to hit the ball deep. And then once you explore that, I say to you something along the lines of, depending on what behavioral style you are, if you're a crowd pleaser, hey, what'd you feel there? Pause. Okay, you just scored 6 points. You just got it in this depth area here. What did you feel? Okay, because it's a crowd pleaser behavior. If it was a thinker, hey, pause, time out. You tell me, what were 2 words that you could use that could describe what you were thinking in that moment? See the difference in the question. Cement their words, not my words. If I think it's stretch or elbow up or box the finish, who cares? What works for them? What are the keywords that cement with them? All right. And then once we work on that, then work on drop shots. 2 minutes and go back to depth. Kids learn best through opposites. Remember, you don't have to agree with anything I say. Just be curious. You teach drop shots and then go back to depth using their keywords. Just try it on like a new pink shirt that says love and tennis, right? So explore it. Back to your beautiful question. And then use the evidence to support the learning. And I'm happy to give links to articles. Tennis Australia has done a lot of research in the power of indirect coaching style.
But you like to see coaches put the camera up and watch themselves.
Absolutely. That was my second.
Yes.
In the how.
No.
How do you do this? Just video, voice record, even 10 minutes of yourself coaching, and then reflect back on how many questions you're asking. Are you adapting your communication style to who's in front of you? And what is the specific feedback you are giving, and is it necessary? Because this is, I can't help myself. I do stop and watch coaches of all sports, and I listen to what they're saying, and I'm fascinated by why they say what they say. And this goes back to when I was 23 and no one gave me a job. I rang all the academies in Florida. It was the mecca of tennis, right? This is in the late 90s, and I couldn't get a job anywhere. So what did I do? What did I do, gentlemen? You know me now long enough, right? Okay, I rocked up anyway. Yeah, kept ringing. No one gave me a job. Rocked up. I said, I'm that crazy girl that just was, no one gave me, I'm here. And I just want to listen to these words. I wanted to learn the look. I just wanted to learn the look. Do I see what you see? Why are you saying that? I didn't see that. How come I didn't see that? Why? And then one more quick tip on communications, my final one, and then I promise we'll get to the game plan. Please, coaches, stop asking why questions when something's gone wrong. This is the truth about why questions. Children will play below the line. They'll blame, justify, deny, and negative, and then they'll quit on you. That's your fault. That's on you. Instead, ask a future-based question. So my TEDx talk, Unleashing Female Potential, was all about when I was taking teenage girls overseas. And 2 key words in that whole talk, the power of next time. Hey, next time, what could you do differently? Hey, next time, what are the options have you got? Next time, what are the possibilities when you're in that position? Next time, what did you learn from that match? Right? If you got to play that same girl again in 6 months, tell me what you learned, right? So future-based. Why questions after something's gone wrong? Why'd you miss that ball? Why'd you lose that match? Good luck.
But before you continue, because you obviously agree about this, because I've seen my kid with maybe 50 different coaches, and you are one of the very few that you don't tell. You have a dialogue. Because the first time I saw you coach him, it was totally different than anything I had ever seen, because the two of you had a dialogue for an hour. You were talking like it was a conversation, and then you did stuff and then more conversation.
Because you need to know who they are, and you need to find out through dialogue, and you try to be curious. Who are they? How do they learn? What can I do to make it better? Because, we have to adjust to the person in front of you to make something happen. And I think that's a key for being a coach. You can't just send the message and think that, okay, now it's up to you. We're in a team together trying to make it happen. And that's why you need to find out who they are and listen, and then you never, and I think one thing that I really, you hear a lot of, what do I do wrong?
Yeah.
And I said, you're not doing anything wrong. It's maybe you haven't learned it yet. Maybe you just in the future you have to say, okay, this is not not my best situation on the court, but let's see if I can make it happen. But you then have to get on the court and train and see if you can make it happen. So I think the way we have that inner voice, when we are negative about what do I do wrong, and no, I can't do it, and why is this happening to me, and that this is all negative thoughts, and it's not bringing you anywhere.
Well, that's what they'll default to in a match. Okay, instead of saying, I love Darren Cahill once said, tennis is a 2-game sprint, right? So, okay, yes, here's my reality, whatever the score is, 4-1 or 1-4, right? And what do I need to do in the next 2 games? Okay, now I'm up that end, sun, wind, etc. My serve, what do I need to execute? Their serve, what do I need to do differently, rather than how come I can't break, right? So just subtleties, because that's the strength of your inner voice determines what you'll end up doing in life. And let's
absolutely,
definitely.
And let's be honest, even the college tennis pathway is a great way to if you're going for a job in the future. We've got, of course, Tina Samara from transitioncoachforathletes.com coming out tomorrow to do a presentation with parents, and it's important that they know what's available to them, so that when they finish tennis, who are you going to hire? So, 2 people with the same degree. You always hire the athlete because of the ability to, the determination, the resiliency of everything that they've learned along the way. So, yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're up to the final section of the workshop, which is the now, which is, remember earlier, the only way I know how to be successful is by taking action. So I just wanted to share the coaching podcast. It comes out fortnightly. I do one business coach, one sports coach every fortnight. It's amazing. I know we speak often about learning from other coaches. So if you have other coaches, what can you learn from them in other areas? One of my favorite quotes, opening quote in my book, is that talent is not nearly as important as execution. So that is really, really important. And I just invite everybody, remember what Roger Federer said. So thank you for listening. And as a result of investing 1 hour of your life that you'll never get back, what are you going to start doing? What are you going to stop doing? And what are you curious about? Start, stop, curious. What are you curious to know more about? Whatever it is, please take action on one thing that this conversation sparked within you. Give it a go and let us know.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm motivated.
Yeah.
So,
why, the what?
So, Øyvind, what will you stop doing?
No, I'm curious all the time. So that's why, I have that, what can we do tomorrow?
Yes.
What can I do to find out more? What can I do about this serve? What can I do with the decision making that I think we have to spend more time on the court?
Absolutely.
And look at, why, and you can't hit one forehand,
That's right.
depending on where you are, so there is like so many things to work on. And that's why I love this profession, because you can always learn new things. You can always be a little bit better, improve things, and to make sure that you improve, because then for sure you will also give it some inspiration for the player to do the same.
Absolutely. Yep. Couldn't agree more.
I'm going to definitely recommend to all the Norwegian coaches that they listen to this, because I think they can learn a lot, actually.
Yep.
So good talk.
Yes. Remember that the future doesn't fit into the containers of the past, and please always be curious.
So thank you for joining us here at Tennispodden. Og til dere som har hørt, og denne gangen også sett, takk for at dere så og hørte på. Tennispodden er tilbake på samme sted som du så og hørte denne, før du vet ordet av det. Takk for oss.